Hi, welcome to Keys Consumer Math, section 11.2. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as possible. So I've already worked out the problems. I just want to talk through them with you. They are the ones that are in your book, but I did them in color, and I just wanted to talk about each element. So we're talking about homeowners insurance. The premiums, like the premiums you pay, that's what you pay out every year for insurance to cover both property damage and liability. That is the insurance that covers medical expenses due to accidental bodily injury or for the damage to the property of other than the homeowner and his household. And then, of course, property damage coverage is the insurance that pays for the dwelling and all of its personal effects, the things that are inside of it. This table 11.1 is the chart that your book uses for all of our problems. It is looking at homes that are worth $100,000, $200,000, or $300,000. And then over here, I hope you can see my arrow. I'm not sure that you can. But over here on the left, it is supposed to be, these are not the quality of the home, but what a person's credit rating is. Superior, good, fair, poor. This top section here, it has to do with the frame construction, house with vinyl or wood siding, and then frame construction house with brick veneer. That means it's not solid brick, but it's got a brick covering over its a brick facing over its body. Okay, so this chart gives you the base value. So let's say your home was $200,000. Oh, and also, I'm sorry, this chart gives you the base value for a $500 deductible. That means you pay out the first $500 of damages, then the insurance company will pay the rest. And then $100,000 in liability. That's the one that covers bodily injury. So anyway, let's say for example that you were looking at the value of a house that was brick veneer for $200,000 and you had a superior credit rating. Then your base rate would be $695. But if you had poor credit rating, your base rate would be $1,453. If you just look here on the chart. That's just the base. There are things added to it that either raise or lower your premium, and those are explained in the fine print underneath the table, the adjustments. For example, number 1 says for a $250 deductible, add 25%, and for a $1,000 deductible, subtract 20%. In other words, if you don't want your deductible to be $500, if you want to pay less out if there's property damage, then your premium is going to be higher. It's going to be 25% higher. Or if you want to have a lower premium and pay less every year and hopefully not have to have any damage, but if you do have damage, you would pay a higher deductible. You would pay the first $1,000. Then in this chart, you would subtract 20% from your base rate. And then number 2 talks about hurricanes. For dwellings in coastal hurricane zones, like where we live, the deductible for named storms are storms that have names like Hurricane Alice or Hurricane Baxter or whatever, they will be 2%, the deductibles will be 2% or 15% of the insured value, depending on which deductible you choose to have. A 2% deductible policy has a base rate that's 4 times higher than those in the table. And a 15% deductible has a base rate of that 3 times as higher. So that means you pay a higher premium, but you get you have deductibles that are specific to storm damage, and you have payouts that are specific to storm damage, in addition to payouts for other kinds of damages. Number 3. The base liability coverage is $100,000. As we said, this table was for. So basically, you've got $100,000 of liability. You can have more than that, though. Additional coverage costs 12.5 cents per $1,000 additional. So if you had, like, let's say, $300,000 liability coverage, then you would subtract $100,000 from that. So you have an additional $200,000. And you would pay 12.5 cents per 1,000 of that. So you would take your $200,000 divided by 1,000 and multiply it by 0.125 to get your added coverage for liability. And we will do some examples that have that in there. Number 4, coverage for jewelry, watches, and furs is an additional $1.30 per $100 of value. So let's say you have $5,000 worth of jewelry, watches, and furs. Then you pay for your premium an extra $1.30 per $100 of that $5,000. So you would take $5,000, divide it by 100. So there's 50 hundreds in $5,000, and then you would take 50 and multiply it by $1.30, and that would add to your premium every year. Coverage for guns is 36 cents per $100 value, and for musical instruments is 20 cents per every $100 value. Coverage for contents in your home, that means everything in your home, its chart says 70% of coverage for the house included in the base price. So it's meaning 70%. If let's say you had a value of the house was $200,000, then it would be 70% of that. So you would get $200,000 for the actual property damage, and you would get an additional 70% times $200,000 for what's damaged in your home up to that amount. Okay, so let's work a couple problems so that you can see how this works. Here we are with example 1. It says determine the homeowner's annual premium for a $200,000 brick veneer home. The insurance has a superior credit rating and wants a $250 deductible coverage and $300,000 liability. The contents include $6,000 worth of jewelry. So because I tried to match everything color-wise, so we've got a $200,000 brick veneer home with superior credit. That means that their base rate is going to be $695. So I wrote that down here in yellow. But they don't want a $500 deductible. They want a $250 deductible. That means their premiums are going to be higher. They're going to pay a higher price every year for a lower deductible. So you're going to take, we're looking at number 1, which I highlighted in pink and then wrote in pink. $250 deductible is 25% or 0.25 times the base rate of $695. So that gives you an additional $173.75 added to the $695 for the annual premium. And that's why there's a little plus sign there. And then increased liability. This chart is for $100,000 liability. If you look at number 3 here, which is also in green. But they want $300,000 worth of liability damage. So we're going to take that $300,000, subtract the regular $100,000 from it, and that's $200,000. Then we take that, divide it by 1,000, so you cross out the 3 zeros. So basically you're saying $200 times 12.5 cents per dollar. So that ends up being an additional $25 per year for an additional $200,000 worth of liability insurance. And then they also have jewelry worth $6,000. So you're going to take that $6,000, divide it by 100, because number 4 up here tells you that you pay $1.30 per $100 worth of value of the jewelry. So $6,000 divided by 100 is 60, times 1.3 gives you $78. And when you add all that up, your annual premium is $971.75. And you pay that out to the insurance company usually, I think it's a couple times a year. They may break it up more, or you may pay it all in one lump sum. I believe that my husband and I pay it out a couple times a year. All right, so that's how you work trying to figure out what a premium is with these circumstances. Let's do another one. If we look here at example 2, it says find Phil's annual homeowner's insurance premium for a $300,000 wood-sided home. The house is on a coast subject to hurricanes, so Phil, with a good credit rating, wants $400,000 worth of liability. $500. He also wants a $500 regular deductible and 2% for named storms. Find the annual premium and find what the insurance company will pay if Phil's home needs $32,450 in damage and repairs due to the Hurricane Erin. So I'm going to scoot this up a little bit as we work. First of all, $300,000 wood-sided home will be here. He's got good credit rating, so his base rate would be $1,338. Let me scoot this up so I can get the whole problem. So that's what I put right here, base rate. But he has regular deductible of $500, so it stays the same. That's what I put here. So we don't have to multiply and add anything, or we don't have to subtract anything from the base rate yet. because he's not changing his deductible, the $500 deductible. But he lives in a coastal hurricane zone, so he has to pay a higher deductible. Not a higher deductible, he has to pay a higher premium. He is choosing the 2% deductible right here, which says deductible for storms will be 2% or 15%. He's choosing the 2%. A 2% deductible policy has a base rate 4 times higher than those in the table. If he chose a higher deductible, 15%, he would have a base rate that's only 3 times higher. But because he's choosing the lower deductible, he has to pay a higher premium. So we have to take this $1,338 and we multiply it by 4. And that gives us every year his base with the hurricane insurance is $5,352. But then he wants extra liability. Okay, so he thinks, okay, if somebody gets hurt, it's going to cost more than $100,000. He wants $400,000 worth of liability. So we say 400,000 minus 100,000 is 300,000. Divide that by 1,000, multiply it by 12.5 cents, and he pays an extra $37.50 a year for a higher liability. So when you add all those up, it's $5,389.50 is his annual premium. Now, it says that, so that's what all of these colors are for. But then I did a brighter blue here because he had some hurricane damage, $32,450 in damage. So what we do is we figure out what his hurricane deductible is. That means what comes out of his pocket before the insurance company pays it. And that is 2% of the $300,000 that his home is worth. So we're going to say, or that the home is covered for. So we say 0.02 times 300,000. So he has to pay the first $6,000. And then after that, the insurance company will pay the rest. So how much are they going to pay? They're going to pay the $32,450 minus the $6,000 he paid. So they will pay out $26,450 in damages for the insurance. The insurance company will pay that in damages because it was a hurricane-related accident. We're going to look at another example now that has a different type of accident, so it would be a different type of coverage. Example 3 says, determine the amount paid by the insurance company for a $200,000 wood-sided home destroyed by fire, not hurricane. The coverage is a $1,000 deductible, and the contents included guns valued at $2,500 and furs and jewelry valued at $5,680. So we're not trying to figure out his premiums. We're just trying to figure out how much money the insurance company will pay off. So I'm going to raise this up a little bit because we don't really need that table right for this problem. So the value of the house covered is $200,000. Now, the value of the content inside the house covered is 200,000 times 0.70. This is part of what insurance covers. It's 70% of what the house value is covered. So they will get the $200,000 coverage for the house, but they will also get 200,000 times 0.70, which is $140,000 for stuff inside the house, or stuff inside the house, but not including jewelry, furs, guns, valuables. So, you have to figure out the value of the guns. So the guns are valued at $2,500, and the value of jewelry inside the fire is $5,680, and they pay extra insurance for that. So, and they have a $1,000 deductible, which is in pink. So you add up all of the value that's covered, and so far it's $200,000 plus $140,000 plus $2,500 plus $5,680. When you add all that up, their damage was $348,100 total value. Their damage may have been more or less, but this is how much can be covered by insurance. This is how much their premiums have paid for. It is different than hurricane insurance. If it had been a hurricane that had hurt their home, then their premiums would have been higher, but they would have figured out what was covered, or figured out their deductible differently than this. It would have been 2% or 15% of whatever their base, not their base value, but whatever the value of their house is at the time. And now I'd like to look at a problem that matches this one, or that goes along with this one, that says how much would their premiums be. So let's figure that out. This is the last problem we're going to look at. It's example 4. It says determine the annual insurance premium for the house in example 3 if the insured had good credit rating. So we knew that it was a $200,000 house. He's got good credit rating, and we also knew it was wood siding. So $945 is his base pay. But it says here, up in the problem above, it said that he has a $1,000 deductible. That means he's got a higher deductible. That would be a lower premium. So up here in pink, I highlighted that $1,000 deductible. You subtract 20% from the $945. So that's what I figured here. So $945 times 0.2, you would subtract $189 from this, and that's what those little arrow or like the sharp parentheses mean, is to subtract. So we have $945 minus $189, but then we're adding in jewelry insurance and guns insurance. Furs and jewelry. Well, they've said that they've got how much did, up here, I'm sorry, the other problem. There it is. So furs and jewelry at $5,680, that's how much it's valued in their home. Plus they've got guns valued at $2,500. So we're going to come over here and we're going to figure out $5,680 divided by 100, and then we're going to multiply that number by $1.30, because that's what it costs to cover jewelry. So that's an extra $73.84 a year. And then guns, $2,500 divided by 100 times 36 cents on every $100. So that would be an extra $9 to cover their guns. So when you add all this up but subtract $189 from it, you get a total of $838.84. That's their annual premium. That's how much they pay every year. So even if they just paid it for 1 year, they would still have over $300,000 paid out by the insurance company to fix their home. And even if they only did this for a few years, it would still be way less than what the insurance company pays out. So when you own a home, you have to have insurance on it. You have to have both the property damage insurance and liability insurance. Then, of course, you can add extra insurance for some of your valuables that are inside the house. Okay, hopefully this will help you figure out the few problems that you have to do for this section. I didn't assign very many because, yes, you have an agent that can help you figure. You would have an agent that would help you figure this out, or you would talk to your insurance agent to help you figure this out. But it's a good idea for you to have an understanding of what homeowners insurance covers, and you could now figure it out yourself if you wanted to.